Welcome back to The Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen, the show where we bring you guys at home into the studio to discuss all the talking points from the beautiful game. Now, today I'm joined by Dougie. Critchley, how you doing?
Good. Excited to talk about Arsenal.
You start singing the North London Forever song.
Yeah.
Christoph, how you doing?
Conversely, to Dougie, I resent being here. Should be Pat, he's gone home. I'm having to talk about Arsenal.
Yes,
Here we go.
Yes, get in the comments and make Pat stay here. And just
In future weeks, yeah.
Exactly. But we also have Stuart here as well. How are you doing, buddy?
I am good, thanks. I'm disappointed you didn't bring up the Saliba chant.
Oh, you guys have too many. There's too many. It actually gets stuck in my head, to be honest. But yes, look, mate, we're going to be talking about Arsenal and seeing how they can stay at the top of the league and go all the way to win England's best division. But firstly, before that, Stuart, I want to go down a negative route. I want to ask you, were you ever Arteta out?
The silence is
Yeah,
gone.
the silence has spoken there.
Silence is deafening, Stuart.
No, I think there's times where we've doubted. Definitely doubted him, but I wouldn't say I was a staunch Arteta outer. So maybe my tweets might agree with at some point, but no, I don't think so. I'd like to try and keep faith with him anyway.
Was there ever a result in your head that you remember where you think, oh, this is tough. I'm not too sure whether the project's working here.
I mean, to be honest, probably any of the times we've been trounced by Liverpool or Spurs. I don't know, there's too many to think of really.
Okay. Well, then let's talk about now then, because it is definitely positive. You guys are top of the league. You're playing great football, well, for the majority anyway. So I want to talk about how you guys can stay competitive at the top of the league. What do you think Arsenal need to do, whether it be transfers, whether it be changes, whether it be starting a certain player instead of someone else? What do you think Arsenal need to do to make sure you stay at the top?
Well, I've got a few ideas, but I think the main idea would be depth in midfield. Clearly that we're very reliant on Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey. Clearly when he's not in the side, there's a big drop in performance, and I think we've seen that in recent weeks. So really we need a backup for him, or a long-term replacement. I think that's the key at the minute.
Interesting. I mean, do you agree? Do you think midfield is a big one, or do you think it's a forward position? I think apparently today Arsenal were linked with Orlando City midfielder Torres. He's a right winger. He's young, 22. Who you think,
I probably agree with Stuart that midfield feels like the most pressing issue. Definitely because I think it seems a bit harsh to nail a 23-year-old, but I haven't been that convinced with Lokonga when I've seen him play recently. I thought in the game against PSV last week on Thursday, he was often caught out of position. Xavi Simons and Cody Gakpo were running all around him. Luke de Jong sort of physically dominated him when he came on as well. And then I think we're looking for a sort of third striker potentially, because I'm not totally convinced that they can go an entire season and maintain a title challenge with just Gabriel Jesus and Eddie Nketiah as their out-and-out nines.
Interesting. Do you have anything to add there? Would you prefer a winger like that they've obviously targeted here in Torres, who's young? I mean, we don't know too much about him. He's playing in the MLS. He's got 9 goals, 8 assists, and obviously that is the way they are making a lot of their transfers, Chris, where they're signing young and getting them into the squad, because obviously Saka is playing a lot of football down that right wing. Do you think that would be a good idea to get someone in like that, or do you think at the moment?
Yeah, if we're talking about that area of the pitch, I think I tweeted in the summer and received a little bit of abuse for it. Rather than pursue Rafinha for 55, 60 million, I would have gone for 2 players, paid middling fees for them. The 2 players I suggested were Dominic Berardi of Sassuolo and Cody Gakpo of PSV, who has, of course, put up absolutely sublime numbers this season and will probably command a greater transfer fee in the coming windows. Not sure of his contract situation, to be honest. But yeah, I think they should be targeting players who won't demand a start, because they don't want to upset the apple cart in that front 5. Because I like the balance they have there right now. But yeah, greater depth would be great. Mudryk would be a fantastic addition as well from Shakhtar Donetsk. Like, he's been a bit of a cheat code for them in the Champions League. So quick. Be lightning quick in transition. Would definitely add. He brings that fear factor with him. He looks physically anyway Premier League ready. But yeah, I think, like Stuart pinpointed at the start of this call, what they should start with, or what they should address first, is the base of that midfield, which I'm sure we'll elaborate on in just a second. But I'd maybe go for someone like Locatelli if that's going to lead us into the next segment.
Indeed it is. I was going to ask you, have you seen anyone that you think would be perfect to kind of play that role? Because also, yeah, look, I think it's tough. They've got to be someone willing to not be starting possibly week in, week out. Who's maybe that you've seen that you'd like Arsenal to possibly go after in January?
Yeah, I mean, as Chris pointed out, Locatelli is still, I think, someone that Arteta's interested in, seeing what's been in the news. And from what I've seen of him, obviously I've seen less of him this season, and I know he's not having as great a year. But if that means we could maybe get him on the cheap, and progress a bit more, I think that'd be wise. Someone that I really like, and actually, is putting sort of like himself in the shop window against us, I think was Ibrahim Sangare.
His name's back.
Whether he would, be willing to come and, play a bit part role, sort of, I mean, the one I wanted last summer was Bruno Guimaraes, but obviously there's no chance of getting him out of Newcastle now.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Sangare. We've been massive fans of the man for a long time. I feel like you've mentioned him in nearly every Sunday Vibes where we talk about a team that needs a midfielder. He signed a new contract. Do you think that's a possible move that could happen?
I've just stopped considering him as an answer to most of these hypothetical scenarios because, I got bored with myself. But his numbers have always popped from a defensive standpoint, haven't they? He's always put up a monstrous amount of tackles and interceptions. Although I think when people think of Thomas Partey and his role within the Arsenal system, they primarily think defensive midfielder. And if you actually look at his numbers, they're quite middling from a midfielders across Europe's top 5 league perspective. So I don't think they need to bring in someone whose skill set is an out-and-out destroyer. So in that sense, Locatelli is a deep-lying playmaker, someone capable of, progressing the ball up the pitch, I think would also be a good solution. But yeah, I mean, Locatelli's having a bit of a nightmare at Juventus. I think they're a little bit cash-strapped at the moment. The fee being banded around is £35 million pounds for him, which is what they were prepared to pay when they missed out on him in a previous window. And Juventus, I mean, he can't be enjoying his football there at current. He's seeing about half the amount of passes he was in his last season at Sassuolo. His influence in the final third has declined. Not that he's ever, put up a massive amount of goals or assists, but just from a personal point of view, you look at his numbers and he can't be enjoying his football as much as he has in the past right now under Allegri.
And then if the project of Arsenal come along, I mean, that's quite exciting to go over there and possibly play.
His skill set seems quite simpatico with what Arteta demands from his midfielders, right? Sorry to sway away from Sangare again, but I think maybe Edu and Arteta would prefer Locatelli.
Okay, I want to move on to our next talking point though. Stuart, this is to you. Do you have any concerns slightly over recent results? Obviously, you beat Leeds, but to be quite honest, I think Leeds were very unfortunate not to at least get something from that game. Lost to PSV, drew to Southampton. Do you think there's any concerns in there? Are you seeing players being overplayed? What do you think? What do you take from it?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think the main reason why we're seeing this dip in performance is due to being, overplayed. Fatigue, because I think two of the biggest issues that we've had this season is actually the Smith Rowe and El Neni injuries. I think, say for example, if El Neni hadn't been injured, Granit Xhaka would be playing quite fewer minutes in the Europa League, and we'd maybe see Lokonga in that 8 role rather than as a defensive midfielder. And I think that's where actually Lokonga's better suited. He showed during pre-season that he can play there quite effectively.
Stuart, why do you think it hasn't quite worked for Lokonga? He's been given time to develop, right? I think it's probably fair for Arsenal fans and Arteta to expect better results than they're getting right now from him. Why is it still not working when he's given his opportunity?
I think one thing, he doesn't seem to be massively physical compared to, say, Partey. he gets pushed off the ball quite a lot quite easy, should I say? And I think that's one thing that could help him. If he sees himself as playing that number 6 role. But I just don't think that is him. When he was at Anderlecht, I think he was seen more as more box to box.
Yeah. I mean, Vincent Kompany said that he was the next Yaya Toure.
Really?
Yeah, so big praise there. Dukes, I want to mention that because I've seen a few Arsenal fans say that that's kind of the biggest issue at the moment, is that players being overplayed. But if you are trying to compete at the top of the league, obviously you want to play Champions League football, be the very best, you've got to play your best players. Like when they're in the Champions League and they're going to be playing, say, Lille or Juventus or Real Madrid, whoever it might be, you're going to be playing your best players, right? So surely this is preparing them for that?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And they've probably overachieved on what they expected at the start of this season. I think Arsenal have been brilliant. But when you're now in this position and it looks like, let's see how far we can get. I think their next 4 games are Chelsea, Brighton, Wolves and West Ham, which, Chelsea will be a difficult game. I think they'll all be difficult in their own right. But they could get to the World Cup and still be top of the league quite easily, hypothetically, with the way they're playing at the moment. So it just feels like it's almost too good an opportunity to start resting these players at the moment. But you do have to take into account that lots of their stars will be starring at the World Cup as well. And there's going to be extra body load on them there. Whereas some of their rivals, the likes of Salah at Liverpool, for example, or, Aubameyang at Chelsea, you can pick out numerous players from every top 4 or 5 clubs that are quite crucial to their sides. They will be getting a rest during that period. So it feels like, Arteta's having to sort of play them to keep this pace up. At the same time, I think there has been some crucial areas in different places, crucial injuries in different places, sorry. I mean, Zinchenko, I don't think he's played since the end of August.
Yeah. And
that is a big loss. I mean, we've seen Tomiyasu in the last few games go into central midfield and actually play that really effectively, that sort of, controlling, sort of similar to what Pep does with his inverted fullbacks. But Zinchenko, I just think, is a different standard to Tomiyasu, to be totally honest. So that's been a big loss as well. So maybe an odd signing in January and getting some of those key players back fit and firing after the World Cup, and they'll be able to push on and hopefully maintain in that first and second challenge.
Okay, finally I wanted to ask you, Stuart, as well. Now you are where you are. You're top of the league. The World Cup's coming in just a few games. You probably definitely didn't think this was going to be the case, as good as you might have thought Arsenal had done this season. I mean, you tell me. But what do you think the expectation is now that you'd be happy with? Obviously, I think top 4 is fair enough. But do you think you should be finishing either second if it's not first?
I think it is a big ask. But I'd like to think we'd be able to do it. I don't think any of the other, bar Man City, any of the other so-called top 6 clubs have really been that consistent.
Yeah.
I think Man United under Ten Hag now, they've sort of found their groove. They could be a threat. So I think, top 3 at least, I think would be a sensible expectation. I'd like to think that we'd be able to at least get our hands on a cup, whether it be the Europa League, whether it be the FA Cup, for example.
Perfect. Well, it's not a bad season, would it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Europa League is going to be really, really difficult. I mean, we'll see who drops into it tonight, so Tuesday night as we film this, but there's already Man United in there, Juventus, Barcelona have dropped, possibly Spurs. Like, it's going to be really difficult to compete for the Europa League in the latter stages, but there's no reason why Arsenal can't do that. And then domestically, Liverpool and particularly Man City have just been so good in those domestic cups for a while, so it's going to be super competitive.
Could also all come down to the World Cup, right, Chris? I mean, there's a month where a player could specifically
Arsenal winning the World Cup?
No, but
if there's one man that can do it, Mikel Arteta.
Yeah. But obviously, the future of the season, if a player gets injured in the World Cup, it could affect any team, really, I guess.
Yeah, but. And like Dougie said, they have got several key players at the World Cup, so fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But I think, going back to your earlier question, anything worse than third would be a disappointment at this stage in the campaign. I think this is their best or possibly joint best start to a Premier League campaign after 11, 12 match weeks. And obviously, when they did match us start, they went on to lose the title both times. But the expectation here is not to win the title, is it, with Manchester City in such sort of rampant form and Haaland to come back. But I think they will try and strike while the iron is hot and make a few additions they maybe wouldn't have if they were competing for that 4th or 5th, spot, kind of where we expect them to be at the start of the campaign. So yeah, maybe we'll see a deal happen that wouldn't have otherwise, and they'll look to capitalise on the stuttering form of of other people in the top
Yeah.
6, and this unexpected form that Arteta has managed to ascertain from the squad.
There you go, Mikel Arteta. You're welcome. We've won you the Premier League if you follow our advice. If you guys want to be involved in next week's Talking Point, then head over to our social media accounts, give us a follow, and also look for the tweets. That's where you'll find where you can be involved in next week's episode. Stuart, thank you so much, buddy. Your Twitter account will also be in the description below. If you guys want to see more Football Daily content, click on screen right now. And as always, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.